Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Soul Seeds, where today's guest expert is Johanna. So, hi, Johanna. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Johanna is a clinical therapist and an energy worker. And we are going to talk about energy and therapy combined. So, I would love to know, what do therapy and energy have to do with each other, really? How do they work together?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so there is a lot of overlap in the sense of really coming back to ourselves at the core, the
Mhm.
unconditioned self, right? The ego, wounded places or the ego places that we work for when we're reactive, right? Maybe we're emotionally charged or when we're engaging with other people.
Mhm.
Um, so there is a lot of work, and so whether it be clinical interventions or something of divination, right, maybe intuition work or tarot or something of that nature, it really does pick up on the energy of the
Mm.
subconscious and things that may be below our awareness.
Yeah, because when you mentioned energy, it's quite a broad aspect, of course.
Mhm.
Everything is energy. So how do you work with that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so, of course, it depends on the client that I have in front of me. Sometimes I have clients that are just strictly clinical. And so, okay, we use a lot
Mhm.
of clinical based language. I do have other clients that are okay and open to energy. And so, what that looks like is maybe someone comes in and I can pick up on their energy, right? I have consent
Right.
to pick up on their energy, read the virtual room, if you will, but it's really the energy. We kind of talk a little bit about that. We check in. And it's just kind of like, okay, they can be saying one thing like, oh, I'm okay, or I'm feeling a little of anxiety, but maybe I'm picking up some heavy stuff. Like, well, I feel
Hmm.
like there's some grief or some residual things that
Right.
there's some struggle letting go. Um, and it really does, it does pair really well when I do have clients that have the collaboration of both pieces.
Hmm.
Because again, these things sometimes happen in out of our awareness.
Mm.
So again, maybe somebody comes in and says, yeah, no, like I think I'm okay. I'm feeling a little bit of anxiety, and they don't notice that they have some residual energy,
Hmm.
whether it's grief or maybe low energy or maybe just an interaction with somebody, right? Because everything is an
Hmm.
energy exchange. So that can lead us to feeling lethargic, that can lead us to feeling tired or just maybe overwhelmed because there's bits and pieces of these energy, residual energy from
Hmm.
interactions that we have with others.
Yeah, because when you mention the word therapy, I think for most people, what comes to mind is talk therapy. And what's even like more rare is, of course, like actual physical therapy. But to combine that also with the energy work, that's more new, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, there was and one of the founding fathers, Carl Jung, initially came out with some symbolism. So it wasn't necessarily
Hmm.
to this regard, but I do reference him a lot when if we're doing tarot or oracle or even just symbolism, right?
Hmm.
Synchronicities. If somebody
Right.
says, hey, I've been seeing a white dove the last XYZ many days, or just kind of symbolism and how it resonates.
Hmm.
We live in such a fast-paced society that whether it's clinical work or energy work or both, it's really about slowing down, pausing, and having that awareness with your body. I
Hmm.
think when we're young, in our environments, we're often taught to not honor that, right? So maybe it's
Right.
where we're full at the table and our caregivers are like, well, you kind of need to finish that. Or I don't like it, we'll eat it anyway. So all these little things that develop when we're younger already go
Hmm.
against us and our intuition and picking up on our own awareness of our body. And so by the time when we're older, we're going 100 miles an hour, doing so many different things
Hmm.
that even something as simple as pausing for breath work is so
Hmm.
crucial and so calming for to be for the regulated, sorry, for the nervous system.
Right. Yeah, because can we self-regulate like our nervous system and our energy?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And just to kind of give some context on upbringing, right? When we're born, we are naturally only afraid of two things: loud noises and falling. So
Hmm.
everything else is conditioned or,
Hmm.
you know, part of the nurture environment.
Right. So everything else that we are taught is that, yeah, that's taught. That's not like born, or we're
Correct.
not born with that. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And also, can we set like, or how important is it, I should actually say, is it to set also energetic boundaries, also for
Hmm.
ourselves, but of course also for the people, around us?
That's a really good question. And boundary work seems to be a pretty buzzword topic. It
Mm-hmm.
actually comes up a lot more often than not. And it can be a little bit harder when we're in interpersonal relationships, setting boundaries with other people, with but
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. Again, slowing down, being mindful. Like, what does my capacity look like? Do I have the energy for this? Do I have the space for this?
Mm-hmm.
So checking in with ourselves, but also honoring ourselves. Like, okay, I'm gonna sit
Mm-hmm.
here for 5 minutes and get back up. Also being intentional about releasing residual energy, as mentioned earlier, right? If I have an
Mm, right.
interaction, um, even if I use myself, for example, right? I'm a clinical therapist and I do spirituality work. So throughout the day, I'm constantly in interaction with people
Mm-hmm.
and their energy. So
Yeah.
being intentional about calling my energy back and sending back
Mm-hmm.
what's not mine to carry really does make a difference in my overall just sense of lethargy, my
Mm.
recharge. I notice over time, I notice a big difference.
And do you have like a certain ritual for that to bring your energy back to yourself, or even cleanse your energy of other people's, or even negative energies?
Yeah, absolutely. So something I know that it varies just kind of in households and cultural and traditions and belief systems. And so something as simple as just doing just that, calling it back, right? I call back my energy that is mine and send back what's no longer, though it's not mine. You can do
Mm-hmm.
something like that. You can clap or snap, a couple of times because that disrupts the energy link.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually just dust yourself off literally and just kind of in the thought. I do use other things like Florida water is a really good one,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual cleansing, and a lot of things like incense and candle work. Those things also offer, yes, the energy work, protection, and cleansing, but it also offers grounding, right? Because you have the
Mm.
aromas, you have the energy from those kinds of things. So it does serve a double
Mm-hmm.
sense of, yeah, healing, calming, a
Right.
reminder. When we smell something good, it's like, ooh, let me take a bigger whiff of that.
Mm.
So the
Right.
nervous system is like, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's because it's so important to be able to be aware of that, of those moments really where you are calm, where you are safe and regulated, and you feel, oh, like you can take that sigh
Yes.
of relief really, and of release as well, because how important is that to release that stuck energy that is within us, in not just in our mind but also in our body.
Absolutely. And so that kind of keeps us on the vibration that we're on, right? Because we need to be able to release that so we can ascend, or whatever term people
Hmm.
resonate more, which is kind of like letting go of the ego, right? Because the ego
Right.
is a protector, right? It serves its
Hmm.
purpose for
Right.
survival. So when we start letting go of that, we come back to our natural, authentic self, where when we're operating, we can identify that we're operating from a place of peace. We're
Hmm.
not reactionary, right?
Right.
And so, yes, it's nurturing yourself from the inside out. Taking a moment. What does that look like? Where am I operating from? What is this
Mm.
serving me?
Yeah, yeah, because it's of course different for everyone. For some people it's breath work where you can really connect to your inner breath, and other people would freak out because of that, because they can't, or sit still, or they're very uncomfortable with
Mm,
dealing with their own breath or focusing a lot on it. I know it was like that for me when I went through a severe anxiety period, when I find it hard to focus on my breath, because if I would do so, it would cause a panic attack. So what would you advise someone who would want to have, moments like that of regulated energy and calmness, but they're not really like used to it just yet, or not very comfortable with it yet?
You bring up a really good point, and I think that's one of my something I speak to too. And a lot of times, meditation is often um, recommended, right? But like you
Hmm.
said, it could
Right.
be triggering for somebody. We don't
Hmm.
know what their association is.
Right.
So my suggestion is always try a different method of breathing, or checking in with each one of your senses. What am I
Mm.
seeing? What am I smelling? Right? You go through each one of the senses,
Right.
take a deep breath, and then repeat. And that's pretty quick. It helps really ground pretty quickly. And one of my favorites is called a 4x4 breathing. So you inhale for 4, you hold it for 4, exhale for 4, and hold that for 4.
Mm-hmm.
And the nervous system responds pretty quickly to that.
Mm. So that's a more like, even like a safer way to explore what you're actually comfortable with.
Exactly. And you bring up a really good point. I have some clients who are working through some public speaking
Hmm.
struggles, right? And so a lot of that is retraining the body with a different breath work, because whatever you've been doing has let the body know, hey, we need to be in fight or flight or survival.
Right.
And so that breath is associated. So disrupting that loop and giving it a different tool or another tool to use instead.
Hmm. Yeah, because what I find, especially when you try several self-healing techniques yourself, it's really about figuring out what you are comfortable with because you don't want to fight against it or even trigger yourself more, but to come from a place of regulation and calmness, of course.
Yes, and sometimes tactile things are
Mhm.
aromatherapy things, right? Scents, something like that. Like you guys mentioned earlier, right? If it's a candle or something smells good, it really
Mhm.
catches us, like it stops us in our track. So something like that is pretty powerful in instances where we're getting really dysregulated. And then kind of to go off of the breath work, it's maintenance work. So if we're not practicing that with the body to identify
Mhm.
it as a new skill, when we're trying to pull for it in the middle of maybe an oncoming panic attack, it's a little bit more
Mhm.
difficult because that skill is underdeveloped for that new breath work,
Right.
grounding exercise, or whatnot.
Yeah. Like you have to almost like train yourself to get used to breathing like that, right?
Yes, just like anything else, right? Maybe we are
Right.
trying to give ourselves 10 seconds. Like we're getting upset and we're just like, I just need like 10 seconds to walk away. You're disrupting a loop, a template that
Right.
is kind of on autopilot. So having
Yeah.
that awareness,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, and being able to you disrupt it with whatever new action, it's going to take work and practice,
Mhm.
which is where kind of that helps throughout the day, right? Maybe you're sitting down, you
Mm.
could do a 4x4 or
Right.
set a timer for the middle of the day.
Yeah,
Making those
because we tend
things.
to use like especially when we are dealing with anxiety, our ego comes in and we tend to behave or act or respond in the way we are used to and what keeps us safe. But that's not always, of course, the actual safe thing to do for us.
Absolutely, especially like you said, right? That a dysregulated nervous system will
Hmm.
almost always choose a predictable chaos over an
Right,
uncomfortable peace.
exactly. Well, I think we've learned a lot. So thank you so much, Johanna. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.